So I'm 30,000 words into the book of Mickey Duff, aka Monarch Prager, and I am looking into lots of different aspects, and one of them is the extreme bad feelings between him and the Kray twins, Ronnie and Reggie Kray. So Duff was born in 1929. The Krays were 1933, so there was 4 years difference. And back in that time, but I'm trying to think. So the 40s was when their paths crossed, and it was, back in that era, boxing, pugilism, as you call it, that was it was in schools, and there were just thousands of young boxers in the East End, all brought up on Ted Kid Lewis stories, Jewish fighters. A lot of the East End in them days was predominantly Jewish. These days if you walk up Whitechapel High Street, it's all Bangladesh, and Bangladesh got their own independence from Pakistan in '78. So back in that era, if you like, it was all Jewish. Your Jack Spot Comer was Jewish, and so that's when they I first met. Back in that era, all the fights were in the Marland Arena, which is no longer. I think it was probably bulldozed in the Second World War, or not long after. And Mickey Duff, himself had 69 professional fights. So when you think about it, that is utterly staggering. I dare say anyone could ever have that again in 4 years. He turned over as a pro, and in 4 years, when you think of some fighters, 10, 12 years, never had that. And the reason he did was he matched himself, and he retired. I think he was well retired himself and went into matchmaking from the age of 20. And, excuse me, I'm just at work. And so a lot of the Kray twins' fights were matched by Mickey Duff. In his biography, 20 and Out, which was written by Bob Mee in 1999, he described them as useless, particularly Ronnie. He said, there weren't these kind of unbelievable talents as the media's kind of let you believe the last 20, 30 years. Reggie was more useful. But I did interview Colin Hart last year, who was, I think Colin was born in 35. So Colin was from East Ham. So he was the number one writer from on boxing from about the 50s, 60s. And he said to me, Mickey described him, he said the Krays were only hard men with a gun in their hand. Albeit Mickey Duff didn't know they were as cold-blooded killers as they went on to be. And I'll let you know a story. So when the Kray twins were arrested, and this is a fact, so when the Kray twins were arrested in 1968, May 68, there was inside Ronnie Kray's Crombie jacket was a scrumpled note, a list, and it said, a list of men that must die. And on that list, now Leslie Payne was on the list, Terry Down, the Mickey Duff's first ever world champion, was on it. But on top of the list was Mickey Duff himself. And this was only weeks after the Krays had sent him 4 dead rats, one for Mickey, one for his wife Marie. And they were under the impression that Mickey Duff had 2 children, when in actual fact he just had one, his son Gary. And so that was them off the streets, and then of course their court, their massive case started in March 69, and it must have given Mickey Duff huge satisfaction that the guy who actually went and arrested Ronnie and Reggie Kray was none other than Leonard Nipper Reid, who of course was very, very close friends with Duff for many, many years because he was on the British Boxing Board of Control. And if that kind of never rubbed salt into the wounds for the Krays, the guy who actually was the QC was a guy called David Hamilton, huge sideburns. And he was going to be basically, trying him out, if you're going to be firing the questions at him. He was actually on the Boxing Board of Control as well. And if that's not actually, if it gets worse. So when the Krays were fighting for their lives at the Old Bailey, it was Mickey Duff who got a front row seat. And Duff said Ronnie looked at him as if he'd have killed him on the spot. Reggie kind of muttered the words to him of all right, as if they were close friends, but they never were. From the day of, I think it was a summer of about 65, I did actually speak to John Spencer, who was there that night when Duff refused the Krays. I think it was Reggie Kray then refused him entry. It wasn't only the Krays he knocked back, because he knocked back Jack Spot Comer, who was obviously a huge kind of Mr. King of the Jews at the East End from Stepney. Mile End, I think it was. And Albert Dimes was another name he knocked back. He knocked back Mad Frankie Fraser and the Richardsons as well. So Mickey Duff, as little as he was, and people tend to think Duff was tiny when he wasn't. He was actually 5'9". He was a lot bigger than... I certainly never knew that until I researched it the week, and I found something which was actually factual about his height. So he was 5'9". And you can see on Duke McKenzie, who was a freeweight world champion, some of the pictures of Mickey Duff. Duke was 5'7". You can see Mickey Duff's a good 2 inches bigger. And Henry Wharton was another fighter, 5'10". You can see Duff was an inch smaller than him, so he was 5'9". But that was there was real hatred, and one of Mickey Duff's favourite sayings was, "I've got the biggest army in the world. I'll go and call my bouncers in blue." And the reason he would say that was, there's a strict code in the East End of no grassing, but that only applies if you are a criminal. And, listen, Mickey Duff was probably a villain in many, many people's eyes. But he was a villain in a straight world. He was a straight goer, as the Cockneys say. And, another fighter from the East End, Bobby Ramsey, who got 7 years with Ronnie Kray for the attack on Terence Martin in 1956 in the Old Britannia pub, which is... I'm just trying to think where that is now. It's now an Indian takeaway in Shadwell, and he tried it on with, and that was a thing. He was never, if you're a market trader or a window cleaner or whatever, if you're a straight go, you can't be a grass. It only applies to the criminals, and Mickey Duff was he was a straight goer, if you like, but there were real bad feeling. And when Ronnie Kray died in March 1995, I think it was on Red Nose Day, St. Patrick's Day, and anyone who, obviously for 5.5 years, Reggie Kray was alive, and when they started saying free Reggie Kray, Mickey Duff was the first name that would stand up in public and say, well, actually, he doesn't deserve to come out, Mad Frankie Fraser kind of put it on his website a few times, slating him. But Mickey Duff was forever talking to people in the press, saying, he doesn't deserve to get out. And the reason being was they wanted him dead, and they were actually plotting to murder him from 65. So if the twins hadn't have been arrested in May '68. I think, you know, it was getting to the point where, you know, in actual fact, Mickey Duff talks about in his biography, people going to see the authorities, going to see his wife, saying his children were okay, because things were getting out of hand. So they were taken off the streets, and I know they did send a letter to Mickey Duff along the lines of, "We should have killed you when we had the chance." And Duff's response to that was, "Yeah, you should have done. Now F off and do your bed." Always one with incredible quick wit, Mr. Duff. And it's thoroughly enjoyable doing his research at the minute. I'm speaking to a lot of interesting people. I will be speaking to Frank Warren next week when I'm in London. So there you go. The rift, the real hatred between the Kray twins and Mickey Duff. They knew each other from being young boxers in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and of course they had a lot of back and forths in the media in the years to come. And yeah, he would not back down from anyone, Mickey Duff. What a character. And it is really, really enjoyable to examine his life, the life and times of Monarch Prager, Mickey Duff. Let us know your thoughts and your comments below. That is a factual story on the real bad feeling between the Pragers and the Krays of the East End.